I remember the exact sound the door made when it closed behind her that Friday. Not a slam, just a soft, deliberate click. The kind of sound you hear in courtrooms or morgues. Final. Cold. Like something had ended before it even began. She said she was going to meet her sister for dinner. That's what she told me as she pulled on her coat and adjusted her lipstick in the hallway mirror. She didn't kiss me goodbye. She hadn't in months, but that night it stung different. Like the absence itself was a message. Like I was supposed to notice. I stood there for a long moment after she left, not moving, not thinking, just staring at the spot where she had been. That hallway had heard our arguments, seen our laughter, held our rushed mornings and late apologies. But lately, it felt like she was walking through it like a stranger in a house that wasn't hers anymore. And maybe she wasn't. I wasn't the kind of man who snooped. I didn't go through her purse. I didn't scroll her phone when she was in the shower. Not because I trusted her, not anymore, but because I still had pride. Or maybe it was fear. Maybe I didn't want to confirm what my gut had been whispering for weeks now. But that night I didn't need to snoop. The truth didn't hide. It came in the form of a manila envelope, tucked into the crack between the cushions of our couch. I was looking for the remote, I swear. And there it was, thick, heavier than it should have been. My name written across the front in handwriting that definitely wasn't hers. Inside were photographs. Dozens. Her. And him. Some taken in a restaurant I didn't recognize. Others in places I did. Parking lot. Park bench. Our own front porch. But the one that broke me was the one where she was wearing the red sweater I bought her for Christmas. She was laughing. Not posing. Not staged. Just real laughter. The kind I hadn't seen in over a year. And the man beside her had his hand on her stomach. Not in a flirty way. In a knowing way. I stared at that photo for so long, the edges started to curl from the heat of my grip. That was the moment I realized what the envelope truly was. It wasn't just evidence. It was a message. Someone wanted me to know. I didn't sleep that night. I just sat in the living room surrounded by evidence of her second life while the house that we built together swallowed me whole. I didn't call her. I didn't text. I just waited. When she came home just after midnight, she smelled like wine and someone else's cologne. She was humming. She didn't see the envelope on the table at first. "Hey," she said casually, setting her bag down, kicking off her shoes like nothing in the world was wrong. "You're still up." I said nothing. Just pointed at the envelope. She froze. And in that stillness, in that exact second, I saw the truth she'd been hiding for months fall all over her face like a cracked mask. She didn't ask what it was. She didn't deny. She didn't even play dumb. Instead, she sighed this long, drawn-out, tired sigh like I was the one causing problems now. Like I was inconveniencing her. Then she said the one sentence I will never forget, "So, I guess we're doing this." Doing what? What exactly were we doing, according to her? Because I had no plan. No script. I didn't even know how to begin asking about the baby. Her stomach was flat now, but the photo said enough. And the silence between us filled every inch of that room like poison. I didn't know her anymore. And whatever she was about to say next, I could feel it would only push her further from the woman I thought I'd married and closer to the stranger who had just walked through my door. She didn't sit down. She didn't come closer. She stood across the room like she was debating whether to bolt back out the door or dig her heels in and perform. And I stood there too, trying to figure out how I had gone from being a husband to whatever this was now. An audience? A witness? A threat? She looked at the envelope again, like it offended her, like it was beneath her to even address it. Then she said, "So, how much did you see? How much?" I held up the photo, the one with her in the red sweater, her stomach cradled by a man I didn't recognize. "This one's burned into my brain. So, enough." That's when she finally showed a reaction. Not guilt, not fear, just irritation. That wasn't supposed to be seen. That was private. I laughed. I actually laughed. That was private? As if that made what I saw less real, less devastating. As if her betrayal had boundaries and I had violated them. Then she walked over to the fridge, opened it, and poured herself a glass of juice. Juice. In the middle of our marriage collapsing like wet paper. And she didn't even flinch. "You gonna say something?" I asked. She shrugged. "You clearly already made up your mind." "No," I said slowly. "I haven't made up anything. That would require having all the information. So how about this? Who is he, how long, and whose kid is it?" She took a sip, set the glass down carefully, like we were in some mediation session. And then casually, with zero hesitation, she said, "His name is Aaron. We were together about 6 months. It ended. The baby was his." My ears rang. The word was doing flips in my head. Was? She saw the confusion hit me and didn't even let me ask. "I miscarried. A little over a year ago. You thought I was just sick that week, remember?" I remembered. Of course I did. She had locked herself in the bathroom and cried through the door, telling me she was having stomach cramps. Told me to bring her a heating pad and not to fuss. Told me to leave her alone. And like an idiot, I did. "So you were going to have his kid?" I said, my voice more hollow than angry now. She looked at me like I was speaking a foreign language. "I didn't plan it." "Neither did I said. "But here we are." And that's when she said the second line I'll never forget. "I just thought if I lost the baby, it didn't have to matter anymore." Didn't have to matter. I had no idea someone could say something that vile with that little emotion. That she could lose a child, and treat it like a scheduling error. Like it was a phase, a weird blip in her life she could shake off like a bad haircut. She kept talking after that. I only half heard most of it. Words like lonely and you weren't really present and things just happened. Like it was a sitcom plot. Like one thing led to another and oops, she ended up pregnant by someone else and lied to me for a year. But I didn't interrupt. I let her spill it all. Because I needed to hear the whole truth. I needed to stand in the wreckage and look at every piece of it. No blindfold. No guessing. Then she asked me, "Are you going to leave?" I looked her dead in the eyes and said, "That depends. Was this the only affair, or just the one you got caught for?" She hesitated. That one tiny pause. And it was all the answer I needed. There was more. There was always more. But nothing could have prepared me for what came next. Because after all the lies, all the excuses, all the emotional gut punches, she crossed her arms and said, "You're still going to sign the birth certificate, though." I froze. My entire body went cold. "I'm sorry, what?" She blinked. "You were the legal father at the time. It'll make everything easier. And my mom says it would mean a lot to the family. We can just move forward." My heart stopped. Move forward? She wanted me to sign a legal document claiming I was the father of a child she conceived with another man, a child she lied about, a child she mourned alone, a child I never even knew existed, and pretend like this was a normal patch in the road? And that was the moment something inside me hardened. "I'm not signing anything," I said. "Not a birth certificate. Not a reconciliation. Not one more goddamn compromise to make you feel better about the disaster you caused." She didn't cry. She didn't scream. She just looked at me with this empty, venomous calm and said, "Then I guess we're done." And with that, she walked out of the room. No apologies. No begging. No looking back. Just like that. I didn't sleep. Again. Second night in a row, and this one was worse. The first night had been confusion, disbelief, gut-punched silence. But this night was rage. Burning, white-hot, nowhere to put it kind of rage. I wasn't pacing. I was storming the floor of my own home like it was enemy territory. Every object looked like a lie. Every photo on the wall. Every pillow she fluffed. Every mug she once handed me with that fake morning smile. By sunrise, I'd packed a bag. I didn't want to stay in that house one more second. Not with her perfume still in the hallway. Her hair still wrapped around the drain. Her chaos still breathing through the walls. I needed clarity. I needed a plan. I needed one person who hadn't lied to me. So I drove to my mom's. She opened the door in her robe, holding a cup of coffee like she'd just been about to sit down and watch her usual morning nonsense. But when she saw my face, she didn't ask anything. Just moved aside and let me in. That's the thing about mothers. They know the storm before the thunder. We sat. I told her everything. The envelope. The photos. The baby. The miscarriage. The way my wife stood in the living room and asked me to sign a birth certificate like she was asking me to hold her bag for a second. And when I was done, I expected, I don't know, outrage? Comfort? You did the right thing, son? But what I got was silence. And then, her hand reached across the table, gently, like I was the one who'd broken something, like I had messed up. Honey, she said, maybe she made a mistake, but don't throw your whole life away over one. I pulled my hand back. Hard. Don't say mistake. This wasn't a lost receipt or a wrong text. This was betrayal. Repeated. Calculated. She looked me in the eye every day while living a second life, Mom. But she wasn't backing down. People fall apart. People do stupid things when they feel neglected. You were always working, always distracted. Maybe she just needed I stood up. Oh, so now this is my fault? Her voice raised then, matching mine. I'm not saying it's your fault. I'm saying you're both still young and you've been through a lot. Maybe there's still something worth saving. Especially now that there's a child involved. There was a child. She lost it. And didn't even tell me. And just like that, the air changed. My mother's expression shifted. Subtle. Like something had clicked in her head. And then she looked down at her lap for a long second before saying, "That's not what your mother-in-law told me." I blinked. What? She hesitated. She called me a few weeks ago. Said there was tension. Said Stephanie was struggling. She mentioned a child. Present tense. I felt like the room tilted under me. Mom, look at me. Are you telling me there is a child? Now. She nodded slowly. That's what she said. But I didn't want to get involved. I thought it was just confusion, or maybe, I don't know. Maybe the timeline got mixed up. It hit me like a truck. She hadn't miscarried. She lied about miscarrying. She told me the child was gone, while her mother told mine the baby still existed. I stood there in my mother's kitchen, shaking, heart racing like I'd been running for hours, betrayed once by a woman I thought I knew, and now blindsided again because the lie was still living, breathing, growing somewhere. Why didn't you tell me sooner? I whispered. My mom's voice was barely audible. I didn't think it was my place. I grabbed my keys and left. Where was I going? I had no idea. I couldn't think. Couldn't see straight. All I knew was that there was a child, a living, breathing child out there. And my wife had erased him from our story like he was a typo. I didn't knock when I got to the house. I didn't fumble for the keys or call her from the driveway or text her some ominous, "We need to talk." I pushed the front door open like a man walking into a fire, knowing full well it was going to burn but stepping in anyway. She was in the kitchen again, same exact spot as the night of the first confrontation, stirring coffee, like it was any other Tuesday. She turned and looked at me like I was just interrupting her morning playlist. "You came back," she said, tone flat. "No," I said. "I came for answers. Real ones this time." She tilted her head. "More answers." "You lied." I snapped. "You told me you miscarried." She didn't react. "My mom talked to your mom. Weeks ago. She told her there's a baby. Alive. Existing. Present tense. So either my mother is lying to my face or yours is running some kind of long con. Which is it?" Her eyes flicked to the window. Just for a second. I caught it. That twitch. That tiny sliver of hesitation that only shows up when someone's thinking, how do I spin this? She exhaled through her nose. Not defeated. Not scared. Just annoyed. "All right," she said. "You want the real story? Fine." She walked past me, brushed against my shoulder like I was a coat rack, and sat on the couch. Legs crossed. Calm. Calculated. "There is a baby," she began. "He's 2.5. His name is Caleb." My legs nearly gave out. 2.5? Are you out of your mind? "I didn't tell you," she continued, ignoring my outburst, "because I didn't want you to take him out of spite. You would have done that." I blinked. "You thought I would take a child that I didn't even know existed, out of spite? You were already emotionally checked out, Ryan. I didn't want you raising him out of guilt or revenge." "No," I said, voice cracking. "You didn't want me raising him at all. You wanted Aaron, didn't you?" The silence that followed was loud. Deafening. She didn't confirm. She didn't deny. just shifted slightly in her seat and picked imaginary lint off her sleeve. That was the confirmation. So what happened? I asked. You and Aaron were going to play house while I stayed here and footed the bills, clueless? She gave me the smug, almost amused glance. I wasn't sure who the father was until after he was born, she said. And by then, Aaron was gone. I figured I'd spare you the drama. I almost laughed. Almost, but nothing was funny. Sparing me would have meant telling me the truth. From day one, not treating me like a placeholder husband while you gambled with paternity tests and hid a whole child from me. She stood up then. Slowly, deliberately. And what exactly would you have done, Ryan? She asked. Run to a lawyer? Told everyone? Made it some big scandal? You think people would have sided with you? A husband who worked late, who barely noticed his wife was miserable? That's what this is about? I said, voice rising. You were miserable, so you went and got pregnant by someone else? That's your excuse. It's not an excuse, she snapped. It's a reason. There's a difference. That was it. That was the moment I knew, truly knew, there was no salvaging this. Not because of what she did, but because of how she justified it. Like this was all part of some logical timeline, some moral gray area she'd navigated carefully and now expected me to understand, even accept. You want me to sign his birth certificate, I said, more a statement than a question. I did. Not anymore. Why not? Because now I know you do it just to punish me. I shook my head, chest aching. You really believe that, don't you? That I'm the villain in all this. She walked past me again. Stopped by the front door. I believe you didn't love me the way I needed to be loved, she said. And Caleb was the only thing that made me feel alive again. The level of delusion in that sentence should have knocked me unconscious. But instead, it clarified everything. I wasn't dealing with a woman who made a mistake. I was dealing with someone who believed her own lies, who twisted reality until she could wear it comfortably, like a coat she tailored herself. I didn't say goodbye. I didn't slam the door. I just left, because anything else would have given her exactly what she wanted. Another scene, another performance, another reason to paint me as the bad guy in a story she rewrote without my consent. That IT was 2 days later when her mother showed up. Uninvited, unannounced, unwelcome. I'd been staying in a cheap rental on the edge of town. Nothing glamorous. Just 4 walls and a bed that didn't smell like betrayal. No furniture except for what came with it, no memories trapped in the corners. The kind of place you go when you're not running away, but you also can't stay. The kind of place where you exist more than you live. I heard the knock around noon. Thought it might be the landlord or some delivery mix-up. When I opened the door and saw her, my stomach twisted. She stood there in a floral cardigan, clutching a purse like it contained state secrets. Her eyes were already moist, but not red. Practiced emotion. She looked at me like I was the last door on a long hallway she didn't want to walk. Hi, Ryan, she said, soft as a threat. I didn't step aside. What do you want? I just want to talk. Please. Every bone in my body told me to close the door. But I was too tired to fight. And maybe some dark part of me wanted to hear what kind of circus pitch she'd rehearsed. She walked in, sat on the edge of the couch like it might bite her, and folded her hands on her lap. She told me you found out, she began. About Caleb. She told me a lot of things, I said. None of them worth repeating. Her mother flinched at the cold in my tone, but continued anyway. She's not proud of what she did. Could have fooled me. She was scared, Ryan. You were drifting apart and Aaron, I held up a hand. Don't say his name. She paused. Took a breath. Fine. Look, I'm not here to defend her. I'm here because of the child. Caleb is innocent. He didn't ask for any of this. I leaned forward, elbows on my knees. And whose fault is that? Who decided to keep him a secret from me? Who told me there was no baby? Who sat across from me while I made plans for a life she already shattered? She thought she was protecting him. And you. That broke me. Protecting me from what? Fatherhood? From truth? From my own I stopped myself, inhaled sharp. I would have raised that boy. I would have loved him. Even if he wasn't mine. But she never gave me the choice. She made it alone. Like I was just some background noise to her life. The room went silent for a second. Then she opened her purse and pulled out a photograph. I didn't come here just to talk, she said. I came to show you this. She handed it to me and I hesitated before looking. but curiosity or pain or some sick need made me take it. A boy. Big brown eyes. Dimple on his left cheek. About 2, maybe 3. Standing in front of a swing set, grinning like the world hadn't broken yet. He looked nothing like me. And yet, something about him punched the air from my lungs. I didn't know what. Maybe it was just the realization that he existed. That all this time, while I was living in a lie, he was growing. I held the photo in my hands for a long time. He asks about you, she said quietly. He knows he has a father. We didn't tell him details. Just that you're away. My jaw clenched. You lied to him too. We didn't know what else to do. I stood up, shoved the photo back into her hands. My voice came out low and dangerous. I'm not signing anything, not visiting, not stepping back into that house, that lie, or that mess she created. Not until I decide what I want. I've been manipulated enough. She looked at me with disappointment, like I had failed them somehow. You'd punish an innocent child for something his mother did? I didn't answer right away. I was too busy trying to keep my rage from spilling over into something I couldn't come back from. Finally, I said, I'm not punishing him. I'm protecting myself. And then I opened the door. She hesitated, walked to the threshold. But before stepping out, she turned back to me and whispered, She still loves you, you know? I didn't respond, because I didn't care if it was true, because love without respect is just noise. 3 years passed. Long enough for the rawness to scab over. Long enough to forget the smell of her shampoo lingering on my pillows. Long enough to delete her number, but not long enough to forget it. I rebuilt in pieces, not all at once. Got promoted at work. Started running every morning to keep my head from cracking open. Bought a new condo, smaller, cleaner, emptier. I didn't date. Not seriously. I wasn't ready to let anyone that close. Not after what she'd done. Not after what she'd hidden from me. That kind of betrayal doesn't just go away. It stains the way you look at people. I never asked about Caleb. Not once. Because asking meant caring, and caring meant falling into that trap again. And I couldn't afford that. Not emotionally. Not spiritually. I'd already buried the version of myself that would have taken that bullet. He died the moment she looked me in the eye and said, You were never supposed to find out. I hadn't heard from her or her mother since that day. Total radio silence. No surprise visits. No calls. No birthday messages. It was like they'd erased me from the narrative completely, which suited me just fine. Until one Tuesday afternoon, the phone rang. It was my mother. I was at work eating a sandwich over my keyboard, answering emails like a machine. Her name popped up and I answered without thinking. That's how they get you, normal days, quiet moments. Ryan, she said, voice thin, fragile. Yeah? Can you meet me? Today. Soon. Is everything okay? No. Not really. The pause that followed was the kind that hums in your bones. I saw her. My breath caught. Her who? You know who. I didn't say anything. I just let her speak. She showed up at my house. With him. The boy. My chest tightened. Why? She didn't say much. Just that he was asking questions about you. About where you went. About why he doesn't have a dad like the other kids at daycare. I squeezed my eyes shut. The kind of pressure that makes your temples throb. She said she doesn't want anything from you. Not money. Not a signature. Just closure. My laugh was sharp and humorless. Closure? After 3 years. She didn't come for her, my mother said. She came for him. And Ryan, I saw his eyes. I saw your eyes in his face. No, I said automatically. No, you didn't. He's not mine. I don't know, she whispered. Maybe not. But that child is carrying the weight of your silence. I stood up, pacing now, the office around me blurring into static. I told you before, I said, trying to keep my voice steady. I made my decision. I know. But she asked for one thing. What? She asked if you'd meet him. Just once. Just to answer his questions. I let the silence stretch out. The air was thick. My heartbeat was all I could hear. And if I say no, then he'll keep asking. And if I say yes, my mother's voice cracked. Then maybe, for once, someone gets an honest ending. I didn't answer. I hung up instead. Because my hands were shaking. Because the past wasn't past. Because the boy I never wanted to think about had just been dragged to my doorstep again, and this time he had a face and a voice and questions that only I could answer. We met in a public park. Neutral ground. Open space. No walls to close in. No ghosts lurking in corners. I parked 10 minutes early, sat in my car staring at the worn-down playground across the field. It was mid-October, cold enough for jackets, warm enough for families to still brave the wind. I watched a kid climb a slide in the wrong direction, get scolded by his mom, then do it again anyway. Somewhere behind me, a dog barked like it was auditioning for a crime scene. Then I saw them. She walked toward the benches, slow and careful, holding a small boy by the hand. Not carrying him. Letting him walk. He was bundled in a navy blue jacket with a patch on the sleeve, a rocket ship. He looked taller than I imagined. More solid. But it was his eyes that stopped me cold. Not because they looked like mine. But because they didn't. Not at all. Which made everything worse. Because it meant I had no excuse not to care. I stepped out of the car and walked toward them. She looked up, her expression unreadable. She didn't smile. Didn't flinch. Just nodded once, like this was a scheduled meeting and we were both here to get it over with. "This is Caleb," she said. He looked at me wide-eyed like I was a painting he'd only seen from a distance, and now it was suddenly breathing. "Hi," he said. Voice small. Clear. "Hi," I said back. We stood there awkwardly, the three of us like statues with different stories. Then she knelt beside him, whispered something in his ear. He nodded, then stepped closer to me. He held something out in his hand. A drawing. Crumpled but careful. I took it. It was us, two stick figures. One tall, one small. A rocket between them. His name scribbled at the bottom in crooked letters. Under mine, just one word, maybe. That's when my throat tightened. Because in all the drama, the betrayal, the silence, the lies, this boy had existed on the sidelines, building fantasies out of gaps no one explained. "What do you know about me?" I asked gently. He looked up. "You were gone. Mommy said you had to go be a grown-up." I glanced at her. Her eyes stayed on him. Avoiding mine. "She said you were nice," he added. "And that you had a house with a dog." "I don't have a dog." That lie wasn't even necessary. It was decorative. Fiction for fiction's sake. "I don't have a dog," I said. He blinked. Oh. The way his little face dropped, just slightly, not disappointment, just recalibration, hit me harder than it should have. "Do you want one?" I asked without thinking. He nodded slowly. "Maybe a rocket dog." Whatever that meant, I nodded too. She finally spoke. "He asks about you more now." I didn't know what else to do. I didn't answer. My eyes were still on him. Still trying to understand the ache in my chest. Was it guilt? Was it fury? Was it longing? "I'm not your dad," I said to him carefully. "But I was supposed to be." He tilted his head. "What does that mean?" "It means I didn't know about you. And by the time I did, a lot of things were already broken." He stared at me a moment longer, then said, "It's okay. You know now." Then he handed me something else. A folded piece of notebook paper. On it, in shaky letters, "Will you come next time?" No pressure. No demand. Just a boy asking if he'd be seen again. I looked at her. Her eyes were wet, but she didn't wipe them. She didn't say anything. I folded the paper, slipped it into my pocket, then looked back at him. "I don't know, kiddo," I said quietly. "But I'm here right now." And he smiled. Not because I said the right thing, but because I said something. I didn't notice it until I got home. Tucked into the inside pocket of my coat, quiet, light, almost weightless. A small envelope folded twice. No name. No writing. Just there, like a ghost someone wanted to leave behind without explanation. I pulled it out and stared at it for a while. Part of me didn't want to open it. Part of me already knew it wasn't from her, this wasn't her style. She liked confrontations face to face. She liked the edge. This was subtle. Thoughtful. Hesitant. I unfolded it and took out the contents. A second drawing. This one was different. More detailed. Not scribbled in haste like the one he gave me at the park. This was clearly worked on. With colors. Effort. It was a house, 2 windows, a blue door. A sun in the corner. A dog, maybe a rocket dog if such a thing existed. And 2 people. One big, one small. No names this time. But in the sky, he'd written just one word in all caps. When? Not if. Not maybe. When? And under that a date. October 28th. 2 weeks away. My heart thudded in my chest. I had no context. No explanation. Just the drawing and that one-word question screaming louder than anything she had said in the past 3 years. I sat down at the kitchen table and stared at it for what felt like an hour. The room was silent. No TV. No music. Just the low hum of the fridge and the louder hum in my head. Was it his birthday? Was it the day they met me again last year and I didn't even know? Was it just a kid picking a random day, hoping it meant something? I didn't know. But it was circled, emphasized, like it meant everything to him. I texted her. What's October 28th? She replied 2 minutes later. His birthday. Simple. Final. No emoji. No, hope you're okay. I put my phone down and stared at the drawing again. The house. The dog. The sky. When? I'd spent 3 years trying to erase a timeline that had been forced on me. 3 years believing the cleanest path was silence, distance, total detachment. And now, a child I never planned for, one born of lies and betrayal, had drawn me into his world with nothing but crayons and questions. I didn't know her anything. I knew that. But him? He'd never lied to me. He never even had the chance. I took the drawing, folded it with care, and put it on the counter next to my keys. I didn't make any decisions that night. Didn't text back. Didn't call. I just sat there, staring at the date. That question. When? 2 weeks. Whatever choice I made next, it wouldn't just be about me anymore. October 28 arrived like a storm you can see days away but still aren't ready for when it hits. I almost didn't go. I had my keys in my hand 3 times that morning and each time I set them back down. I must have stared at that folded drawing on my kitchen counter for an hour, rereading the word when, like it would start to answer itself. I didn't tell anyone I was going. Not my mother. Not friends. No one. I didn't want advice. I didn't want opinions. This wasn't something I could crowdsource. This was personal. Ugly. Real. I arrived at the park again, same one. Different corner. There were balloons tied to a tree, a table with cupcakes, juice boxes lined up in rows like little soldiers. 2 folding chairs. Some cheap decorations that said Happy Birthday, Caleb, in mismatched fonts. It wasn't flashy, but it was clearly made with care. I spotted her immediately. She was wearing a long beige coat and sunglasses even though the sky was gray. She looked different. Tired in a way that makeup couldn't fix. Her smile was brittle when she saw me, like she wasn't sure if she was allowed to be glad I showed up. Caleb was spinning in circles by the swings. When he saw me, he ran over without hesitation. You came. Happy birthday, kid. He threw his arms around my waist. I froze. My hands hovered midair before I slowly rested one on his back. Then I heard another voice. A man's voice. Caleb, come get your present. I turned. He was standing near a cooler, tall, broad, confident, holding a wrapped box, wearing a leather jacket like it was part of some image. I didn't recognize him, but I knew who he was. Aaron. My stomach twisted. She hadn't said a word about him. Not during the confrontation. Not during the park meetup. Not when she sent me drawings or told me about the birthday. I looked at her. Her face was frozen, unreadable, like a movie on pause. She knew this would be a blow and she let it happen anyway. Caleb tugged at my arm. Come on, I want you both to see it. Both. Not one or the other. Both. I followed, slow, careful, every step heavier than the last. When we reached the table, Aaron gave me a once-over, a long, deliberate scan, sizing me up like I was competition in a fight he thought he'd already won. Hey, he said, casual. Hey. He offered a hand. I didn't take it. Didn't think you'd show up, he said, grinning. I don't do things for you. No, he said, but you came for him. That's good. His tone wasn't mocking. It was worse. It was sincere. Like he thought we were now co-stars in this strange, broken family show. I turned to her. Why didn't you tell me? She didn't pretend not to know what I meant. I didn't think you'd come if I did. Right? I said. Because manipulation is your love language. She flinched just slightly. Aaron stepped in again. Look, man, I'm not here to make anything messy. We're trying to keep things steady for Caleb. He deserves that. I hated how reasonable he sounded. I hated that his presence felt stable. That he wasn't a monster I could pin this on. He was just there, calmly slotting into the picture she'd edited me out of. Caleb opened his gift, a toy rocket with lights and buttons. He squealed with joy and held it up like it was a trophy. "Will you help me build it later?" he asked me. My throat tightened. "Yeah, sure." Then, out of nowhere, he pointed at Aaron. "He helped me with my costume." "But Mommy said you used to build things too." "That true?" I looked at her. Her eyes met mine. Quiet. Waiting. "Yeah," I said. "It's true." And that was it. A shift. A crack. A moment. Aaron clapped Caleb on the shoulder and said, "Go show your rocket to the others." Caleb ran off. Then Aaron turned to me. His smile gone now. Just two men standing in a gray park with too much history between them. "She told me everything," he said. "Eventually." "She tell you I almost signed that birth certificate?" "Yeah." "Said you stood your ground." "I did." "She respected that." I stared at him. "You know what I wanted that whole time? One thing. Just the truth. Not control. Not revenge. Just the truth. And neither of you could give it." "I think," he said slowly, "you were the truth. That's why it scared her." I didn't have a reply to that. So I walked away. Not in anger. Not in defeat. Just done. I left before the cake. I left before the song. But the last thing I saw was Caleb turning to look at me, rocket clutched in both hands, his smile wide and uncomplicated. And I waved. Because whatever came next, he was the only part that ever really mattered. I didn't sleep that night. Again. Not because of anger. Not even sadness, really. Something else. Something harder to explain, like emotional vertigo. Like standing in the center of a carousel that had finally stopped spinning, only to realize you didn't know where the exit was anymore. The next morning, I sat in the same kitchen, same silence, same empty condo. The drawing Caleb gave me was still on the counter, but now I had something new beside it, a photograph. One his mother had slipped into my hand just as I was leaving the park, quiet and fast, like she didn't want anyone else to see. It was Caleb. Sleeping. Curled into a blanket. On his cheek, the exact dimple I had as a kid. The one I'd never noticed on him before. It wasn't proof of paternity. It wasn't some magic DNA revelation. It wasn't even about blood anymore. It was about something else entirely. Responsibility. Choice. What you do after the war. I had always imagined my final decision would come in a blaze of emotion. A final confrontation, a declaration, a slamming door, something cinematic. But it didn't come like that. It came in a quiet moment with a coffee gone cold in my hand, and the realization that forgiveness is never really about the person who hurt you. It's about you, and what kind of man you still want to be when the dust settles. I didn't call her. I didn't text. I didn't draft some dramatic letter. I showed up. At their apartment this time. Late Sunday morning. She opened the door and looked at me like I was a memory. One she hadn't yet decided if she regretted or missed. Before she could speak, I held up a small box. A model rocket kit. Unassembled. Real parts. Complicated. The kind that takes patience. Focus. Time. "For Caleb," I said. She stepped aside to let me in, no questions. He was on the floor with building blocks when he saw me. Lit up like Christmas. "Are we building something?" "Yeah," I said. "But it's not just for today. This one's gonna take a while." He beamed. "Cool." And we sat down. Side by side. No dramatic music. No teary explanations. Just screws, wires, glue, and a long road ahead. She didn't interrupt. She didn't hover. She just watched from the kitchen. Quiet. As if afraid the moment might break if she breathed too loud. And for the first time in years, I felt something solid. Not joy. Not healing. But choice. I wasn't stepping back into a marriage. I wasn't forgiving her. I wasn't trying to erase what happened. That chapter was over. But Caleb? He was a blank page. He hadn't asked to be written into a mess. But he was here now, real, alive, asking when, like his heart had been waiting. So I made my choice. To show up. Not as a father. Not yet. Maybe not ever. But as a man who wouldn't let the worst version of someone else define the kind of man he became. In the end, betrayal didn't destroy me. Silence did. And now I wasn't silent anymore. If you're reading this, if you're standing at the edge of your own wreckage, wondering if anything is worth stepping back into, know this: you don't owe forgiveness. You don't owe silence either. You owe yourself the right to choose again. On your terms. That's what I did. And that's what I'll keep doing, one model rocket, one weekend at a time.